Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome to Inside Scoop Virginia. I'm Bettina Lawton and I'm your host. And tonight we are going to be talking about the NAACP in both Fairfax and in Alexandria. And as our viewers I'm sure know, the NAACP is the oldest and the largest civil rights organization in the country. It was founded in 1909. I think our chapters here are not that old, and certainly the presidents of Fairfax County and the Fairfax City are certainly not that old. And I want to welcome them to the show. I'm going to introduce first Shirley Ginwright. She is the president of the Fairfax County chapter of the NAACP. She was recently elected to her second term. She is actually from Montgomery, Alabama, where she participated in the civil rights movement and marched with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King on the Selma to Montgomery March. She has a degree in legal studies. She is working on her master's in criminal justice. She is the chair of the Fairfax County Communities of Trust Committee, and hopefully we can find out a little bit about what those are. She is a member of the Fairfax County Police Chief Diversity Recruitment Committee and the Executive Diversity Committee. So thank you so much for coming, Shirley.
Thank you very much for having me.
And I'm going to ask you, because I know that your attire symbolizes something, and I want you to tell us about it and find out what am I supposed to call you Queen Mother, or what, is there an official title I need to share tonight?
My outfit represents my title of Marfa, which is Queen Mother for the country of Cameroon, Africa. I had my DNA traced back to Africa, and it was to Cameroon. And in May of 2014, I was given the title of Marfa, Queen Mother. And this is the outfit that comes with the title.
And what responsibilities come with the title?
Lots of responsibility. I work here with the Northwest Funds Council, who are stationed in Silver Spring, Maryland. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I do is help to raise funds for the kids to go to school. It costs $50 a year to send one child to school. Unfortunately, they don't have it.
And this is in Cameroon?
This is in Cameroon, yes. So working on projects such as helping to build roads. I am the mother of the kings, so we have a lot of fun with that, because one of our kings left and went to Cameroon, and I didn't know where he was.
Oh.
So I had to tell him, I'm your mother, so you have to tell me where you are. So their responsibility more toward helping to make things happen in Cameroon to improve the economy there.
That's excellent. Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That was marvelous. Marvelous. Now we also have LaDonna Sanders. She is the president of the Alexandria NAACP. She is a native of Alexandria. She has a master's degree in social work, and she has over 10 years of experience in working with children and families affected by child abuse and neglect, mental health, and families impacted by foster care and adoption. She is a board member of, I hope I'm going to say this right, Gyra's Place? Gyra's Place, which is a nonprofit working to equip and nurture teen girls and their mothers. She is also a consultant for Lean On Us Unity House of Faith, which is an enrichment program to empower and reshape the lives of young women. So I want to welcome you for coming tonight to be on the show as well, LaDonna.
Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. Well, let's get first a little bit of information on each of your chapters. Let's start with you, Shirley. Okay. So when was it formed? How big is it? What do you do? I know you meet every month.
Right. The the Fairfax County chapter was established in 1944. We were chartered then. We have about 250 members, not all of them actively participating. We have some goals that we have for this year in education, of course, increasing our membership. So in the process of preparing a strategic plan. We work very closely with the school board, the Board of Supervisors, Gaza, our supervisor. But we have a lot of concerns around education, the gap, academic achievement gap, the pre-K, lack of facilities.
Right.
So those are some of the things that we'll be working on. Of course, voter suppression, voter registration, those are.
Now, can anyone join your chapter?
Anyone can join the NAACP. We are open to everyone. And what a lot of people don't know is that the NAACP was actually established by whites in New York in 1909. Yes. And it was established because a group of individuals were not pleased in how blacks were being treated. So they held several meetings, and after their third meeting, they decided, well, we should call our little group, it was about 5 of them, we should have a name for our group. And they came up with the name of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People.
Were there any blacks or colored people in this original group?
Yes, there was one. Originally there was not, and then there was one that came in to work with them who had a separate group that they were working with in New York. And they said, okay, let's combine our efforts and work together.
Good, because there's nothing quite like having somebody tell you what to do.
Yes.
You know, it's kind of like not a message you really want to send.
Yes.
So, well, LaDonna, tell me about the Alexandria chapter.
Our chapter was founded in October in 1933 at the Alfred Street Baptist Church.
So you're actually much older than the Fairfax.
Yes.
Okay.
And currently we have about 250 members. We have youth membership as well, and then we have also life members. Our meetings are held at the Charles Houston Recreation Center in Alexandria, and we meet the 4th Thursday of every month. And typically we have a guest speaker who comes in and we talk about any issue that is around what the NAACP created. It's called the 5 Game Changers. And those 5 Game Changers involve they address areas of education, health access, economic sustainability, voting rights and suppression of voters, and we also focus on public safety and criminal justice.
Okay. Terrific. Well, let's talk about something that happened, because it just ended, which is the General Assembly. And I know that there were some bills that the NAACP was interested in. One of them, as I understand it, is the decriminalization of marijuana, which first of all, when Senator Adam Ebbin introduced that, I thought to myself, only from Alexandria. Because somebody, you're not going to see somebody from the South Side, unless they thought it might be a substitute crop for tobacco. But why was the NAACP coming in on a decriminalization of marijuana?
Well, more so for the fact that the disparity of the number of blacks that have been incarcerated because of marijuana compared to whites.
Okay.
And in the United States, we have more people incarcerated than anybody in the world.
That's right.
And when these kids are incarcerated, or when they get a charge, even though it's a misdemeanor, it's a drug charge. So it prevents them from moving forward with their lives. They cannot get federal grants to go to school. They cannot get federal housing. So there are a lot of can't get.
And this is all because it's a drug charge?
Because it's a drug charge. So the decriminalization of this would remove the drug charge. It would make it a lesser fine for them. Right now it's a fine, jail sentence that carries on for the rest of their lives. So we're saying, does a child have to be punished the rest of their life for doing something stupid? And this is what Senator Evans was saying. Give them a chance. Let them move forward with their lives. This isn't a drug that kills anybody. You can drink alcohol and go wrap around a tree and kill yourself and a whole bunch of other people.
That's true.
But the marijuana does not. But basically what he's saying, let's look at the impact that it's having on the lives of the individuals that you're incarcerating. You will spend $25,000 a year to incarcerate somebody that may have had $2,000 worth of marijuana. And that makes a lot of sense.
But that's not then personal use unless the price of marijuana is really high, which I'm not aware of. But that sounds more like a dealer as opposed to like personal use. Was it going to decriminalize?
Well, no, these are not all dealers, no.
Really? You can
Because
have that much marijuana? How much does marijuana cost these days?
I have no idea. I've never bought any. I've never smoked.
Have I? It's like,
no.
We have no idea. You know?
I have no idea.
I just got never
But a
assumed it was
possession,
yeah.
you know, charge,
possession.
and you get incarcerated. But even some of them have been caught or stopped, or say, well, we see some little ashes, and they get charged with marijuana possession. And I said, are you for real? But the thing is, a kid can get charged, they go to court, but it hasn't been tested to see whether it was marijuana or not.
Wow.
You know, so they get a public defender because they can't afford an attorney. So the first thing he says, well, you know, you take a plea deal and you go to a class, well, you still got a drug charge.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
So
and this would make it, but it's decriminalization, so it's not.
It's not legalization. We're not trying to legalize it.
Right.
We're just trying to decriminalize it and say, hey, look, make it a misdemeanor, not a felony.
Okay.
There's not a sentencing that goes along with it. You get a fine.
Okay.
And then if you get caught again, there are different provisions in the bill.
So is this like a traffic offense?
Absolutely,
Yes,
it's equivalent. It's
like-
equivalent to a
Right,
traffic
exactly.
offense. And you know, Shirley did such an amazing job with championing the local chapters, Alexandria, Arlington, Prince William County, getting all of us on board, because there was some apprehension, you know, what perception that would look like in the community if we were, you know, as an organization saying that, you know, this was okay. But when you go take a look at the data and review the number of arrests, you know, it's very significant, and the impact across time is definitely much more detrimental than allowing the small amounts that they have sort of made the cushion for in the bill.
Because the arrest rate is like 3 to 4 to 1. You know, so
this really
it's a great impact. Yes, it does. And when you arrest one person, it has a domino effect, because if you take the husband out of the family, now the wife is left to raise the children. If she's not working or does not have the income to continue, now you have someone that's going on subsidized housing or welfare to try to help support. So that's another financial burden, where the taxpayers are taking care of that too. But like in 2010, the Virginia spent $70 million in trying to enforce drug laws. $70 million. Now, if you
marijuana or drugs all?
These was marijuana.
Marijuana?
Right. So the thing is, if you multiply that times 4 years, look how much money we've spent.
Right.
And something that hasn't made an effect.
Wow.
You know, so if you take that money and put it toward the schools, look how much more we could be doing to educate our children.
Well, we've got to take a break. We will be back in 2 minutes with more. Stay with us.
I need a job.
Necesito trabajo.
I would like to speak English better.
Me gustaría hablar inglés mejor.
I want to be a U.S. citizen.
Quisiera ser ciudadano de los Estados Unidos.
For over 35 years,
Por más de 35 años,
the Hispanic Committee of Virginia has been serving our community.
el Comité Hispano de Virginia ha estado sirviendo a nuestra comunidad.
Job training and placement,
Capacitación, ayuda para conseguir trabajo,
education for children and adults,
educación para niños y adultos,
immigration, naturalization, and medical referrals.
ayuda para los procesos de inmigración y naturalización y orientación sobre médicos
Are a small part of what we do.
son solo una pequeña parte de lo que hacemos.
For help, information, or to volunteer,
Para ayuda, información o para ofrecerse como voluntario,
contact the Hispanic Committee of Virginia,
comuníquese con el Comité Hispano de Virginia,
helping everyone participate more fully in American society.
ayudando a todos a participar plenamente en la sociedad norteamericana.
Hey, Lena, where's yours?
Would you notice if you were missing half your kidney function? According to the National Kidney Foundation, 20 million people have chronic kidney disease, and 20 million more may be at risk and not even know it. Anyone with high blood pressure, diabetes, or family history of chronic kidney disease is at risk. Early diagnosis is vitally important. To get the whole story, talk to your doctor and visit the National Kidney Foundation at kidney.org or call for a free brochure. Because when it comes to chronic kidney disease, you might not know the half.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back. I'm Bettina Lawton. I'm your host, and we are talking about the NAACP with Shirley Ginwright. She is the president of the Fairfax chapter, and LaDonna Sanders. She is the president of the Alexandria chapter. And when we left, we were starting to talk about the money that could be used in education if we weren't spending all of it trying to enforce marijuana laws. And I guess that legislation didn't pass, if I recall.
It did not. It was split down party lines.
Not surprising. Not surprising. So that's $70 million. It's still going to be spent on that.
So they'll see us again next year because we aren't giving up.
Well, let's talk about education for a little bit. I noticed on your website that you have a meeting coming up on March 14th to do with education in Fairfax. What's that about? Tell us about it.
And actually, it's to just talk about education, what it is that the community think we should be doing, some of their concerns, and it's to discuss it with our executive board, some of our members, because we don't have an education chair, but we have our first vice president, Ralph Cooper, who has an oversight role for education. So this is an opportunity for others to come in and give their ideas on what they think we should be doing in education, and sort of like a little forum, I suppose you can call it a mini forum. And from that, I hope to be able to go back to the chapter and we have a discussion. We have an offsite with our executive committee coming up soon. And we can discuss some of these things and then lay out our path and our strategic path, our plan for the rest of the year.
So is this meeting just for people who are members of your chapter, or anyone can come?
Others can come, yes.
Okay, and where is it going to be?
It's going to be held at the Kings Park Library and Superintendent's Cook Conference area, which is adjacent to the library on Burke Road in Burke, Virginia.
All right, good. Sort of in the middle of the county. So.
Yes.
Well, what is the state of education in Fairfax? I hear lots of different things. Different people think about our education system.
Well, we have a new school superintendent, and I met with her when she first took her position. And I think she's following through with some of the things that she had said. One of our concerns was pre-K education, that we have this long waiting list for kids to get into school, don't have enough facilities. So one of the things that we want to look at are there other areas or facilities like churches that might have schools that could possibly be used as a pre-K school?
And what happened with the budget? I thought that the state cut pre-K money. Did they bring some back in? Because at one point they were talking about cutting it, and people, I remember, were saying that is really foolish because it just keeps sort of snowballing if you don't start out prepared.
That is true. I was told recently, and I have to verify this, that there has been some money, even some federal funds that was given for pre-K. So I'm going to be speaking to some people on that, and in fact we expect some of them to come to the meeting on the 14th. So we do need to look at the cost of things, because when we talked to Superintendent Gaza, one of the things that we was told that to modify a facility would cost like $15,000. Well, if you can modify a facility for $15,000 to $16,000 and get another classroom for 15 or 20 kids, I think that's a big improvement, and we need to look at doing something like that. But one of the other things that she did that I like is went around the county with forums to talk about what she's doing and listen to some of the concerns of the parents. And I'm sure they were not attended as well as she nor I would have wanted them to be. But at least that was that effort to go out into the community.
That was a big difference, because the prior superintendent was sort of not warm and fuzzy.
That is correct, and I think she has to clean up some of the stuff that he did. So but I think, and you mentioned the portrait of a graduate.
Yeah.
Right, and that was one of her initiatives, and she had over 70 people on that committee, and one of Dr. Larry Bussey from the Fairfax NAACP represented us on that committee. And I really agree with her in that our kids, when they come out of school, high school, they need to have certain skills to either go to college or to succeed anywhere in life. And on 2 weeks ago, there was a roundtable discussion with Congressman Byers, and one of the discussions was surrounding the colleges not even preparing the kids to come out of college and get a job, because they're training them in one thing, knowing that the jobs aren't there in that field. And I think this is the same thing that Superintendent Garza is saying. You know, everyone's not going to go to college, but we need to make them qualified to do something to take care of themselves. And that reading and math and writing skills, verbal skills, those things are important. You know, so there are some things we have to do. We have the academic achievement gap that is still there, so we have to work on that.
But has any progress been made on that? Because people always keep putting ideas and saying, oh, we're going to do this and that'll, and I don't see a whole lot of movement in Fairfax. I don't know what's going on in Alexandria, if it's better there.
I mean, the achievement gap is definitely something that it's going to take some time to address. The schools, right now I'm working on the Alexandria City Public Schools strategic plan representing the NAACP. They invited a community member to come in and offer strategies to this team in terms of planning the 5-year plan for ACPS. And so we have discussed things like the achievement gap, you know, having real and honest conversations about what that looks like, what can we do differently to address the needs of the students who are definitely being underserved currently in Alexandria City Public Schools. Our new superintendent, Dr. Alvin Crawley, has been working diligently with myself as well as other community organizations to ensure that we're having those honest conversations and to ensure that the questions that the community brings to the NAACP as well as other organizations are being addressed. We have an open door policy with him. He is accessible to myself, to members of our branch. What we've been trying to get them to do is take a look at sort of ensuring that individualized plans are created for the students that we serve, and that we figure out a way, because I think one of the things that is missing and that would improve the achievement gap is parent involvement. And that changes, in my mind, with how we do the outreach. There's a lot of information that is posted on the city websites and that they send letters out. Parents are working, they get busy, you know, everybody's not able to sort of check the kids' book bags every night or check the city website every day. And so thinking about in terms of how we do our outreach so that all of the information that ACPS is disseminating to the community is equitable, and to ensure that everybody is receiving the same information at the same time, even if it has to be in different languages. How it is they bring the community together. Maybe, you know, traditionally there are not a lot of low-income families who are participating in some of the PTAs, and so figuring out how can we get those parents and families to stay engaged.
Well, that I think is a perennial problem. I remember when I was president of a PTSA, we sort of looked around the room and said, wow, you know, the PTA isn't exactly reflecting the demographics of the school.
Absolutely.
But trying to figure that out, people are still talking about it. I was president of the PTSA like, 15 years ago, so it tells you how long we've been having these conversations. And is there anything out there that you can point to, because there's not a lot of money. I mean, in Fairfax County, they did not get all the money they wanted. They're getting 53 or 54% of the county's budget, but they wanted more. They're short by several million, $40 or so million. So the money isn't there. How do you address something like an achievement gap, which just seems so hard and massive? when there isn't a lot of money to throw at it? Is there a lot of money elsewhere? I always look at...
You stop locking people up in marijuana, and then you take the $70 million and put it toward the education.
Well, there is that. I got to tell you, there's a whole lot of appeal to that argument, both in terms of not having, as you were saying, the long-term effect on these young people, and freeing up that kind of money if we could just get the state to actually give it to us for education instead of diverting it elsewhere. But it's very, as a practical matter, very difficult in the systems to say, let's address this in a really concentrated way. At least in Fairfax, it always seems every time somebody wants to focus on this, you have someone else saying, but I need strings in the 4th grade, and I need, Chinese language in the 1st grade, so things don't move.
I mean, anytime that there are, the budget is always an issue in terms of, figuring out which programs are going to get money. The fight every time is very, deciding who continues to keep what or gets more funding is always a difficult choice. I think to cushion some of that, I think school systems can utilize some of those nonprofit organizations in the community, utilizing parks and recreations, thinking about how those programs can also support some of those missing gaps that the schools aren't able to do. Because each year we're asking the teachers to do more, we're asking them to stay after school, we're asking them to commit to supporting the students in teams and things like that. And so utilizing churches, other organizations in the community, I think will cushion some of that that gap that we're looking for when the money's not there.
So it's more outreach, more collaboration with other entities in the community that you think will help. Let me ask you, because we've got a couple minutes before we have to go to our next break, but there's a phrase that you see tossed around a lot called the school to prison pipeline. You want to explain that, and what can people do to sort of stop that?
That is definitely, it's a topic that's been up for discussion for quite some time. And what I'll say is that, in the literature that I've read, I understand that the 3rd grade reading and test scores is how individuals determine, or the state determines how many jails will be built. And so if we get to a point where the students are reading on grade level and doing math and performing at a 3rd grade level when they're supposed to be, those kinds of things, it will be eliminated. And so what we have to do is to start early, what Shirley was talking about with the pre-K. That's the importance with the pre-K. And having students understanding that education is fun. Students go to school, and I think one of the number one things that I hear is that it's not fun. They want to have it fun, and so getting teachers to think about what that looks like in the classroom is what we need to see happen.
All right, well, we are going to take another break, and we're going to come back and pick this up because it's important. So please stay with us. We are going to take a break, and then we are going to come back with Shirley and LaDonna to talk some more about education. Stay with us.
This year, 28,000 Americans will be diagnosed with oral cancer. Every year, 7,000 Americans die of oral cancer.
I'm Eva Cohen, and I'm an oral cancer survivor. I didn't fit the profile. I didn't smoke or drink. I had no family history of cancer, no family history of cancer. I was 31 years old. I went to see my dentist about a sore in my mouth that wouldn't heal. It was oral cancer. I had to have a radical neck dissection and a portion of my tongue reconstructed. I didn't know if I was going to live or die.
I'm Surgeon General Richard Carmona. The survival rate for oral cancer is only 50%. Oral cancer can happen to anyone. If you have a sore or lesion in your mouth that doesn't heal within 2 weeks, see your dentist. Early detection is the key.
Early detection saves lives. I know.
1 in 8 Americans goes hungry. One idea helped change that. A community started a garden that blossomed into farmers markets. 1 in 6 children lives in poverty. One group of women found an answer by opening a daycare center that their neighbors could afford. Today, 36 million Americans live in poverty. But one by one, people are helping themselves and each other to change the picture of poverty to one of hope. For easy ways you can help, visit povertyusa.org.
words for you. Pop quiz. Ready? Name any funny movie. A drama. Name a mystery. And one more thing. Name the movie your kids saw today in science class.
Know what really matters. Know about your kid's school. And know about your kid. Find out 100 ways to know more, do more.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back. I'm Bettina Lawton, and I have with me tonight Shirley Ginwright. She is the president of the Fairfax chapter of the NAACP, and LaDonna Sanders. She is the president of the Alexandria chapter. And when we left, we were talking about the school-to-prison pipeline, and I wanted to pick that back up again because it's a very important topic, and you hear about it. And I was surprised, LaDonna, when you said, "Oh, the third grade scores is what dictates the prison, how many prisons you build." It was like, wow, that's really an early indicator of problems. So pre-K is one way of dealing with it, but we can't sort of give up on everybody who happens to be in the fourth grade today through the 12th. So what do we do?
Well, see, one of the other things that lead to the prison from school is the disciplinary actions taken against our children. And again, we have a disparity in that the minority kids are disciplined more, and they get suspended more. So if you get suspended, now you're out doing nothing or doing something that's going to get you in trouble.
Right, you're going to get more trouble.
That's exactly right. So now you're headed into the system. And once you get into the system, it's like a revolving door. You know, so how do you get back out of it?
Did that get changed? Because I was actually on a task force that the school board set up a number of years ago.
They were actually, there has been a change to their policy that says now that the parents have to be notified before a child will admit
that always troubled me.
That's right. How you know, a child is that, a child. So now you want to make them an adult and say, yes, I'm going to agree to this.
Right.
But when the law says you're an adult at 18.
Right, but you're in the room with your principal or your assistant principal, and they're questioning you and getting admissions, and your parents didn't even know about it.
Exactly.
And so now I understand that they have to notify them at some point in the process. I don't think it's as early as I would want to be notified if it were my child, but at some point.
If it is something that's going to cause them to have a disciplinary action, like being suspended from school, they have to talk to the parent before they do anything to the child.
Right.
So, but that's just one step.
Right.
You know, so we have to do some other things to eliminate all.
What do you think we need to do?
Well, I mean, some of the infractions I think are so minor. You know, so you give them in-school suspension.
Right. So you need more parental discretion, or not parental, principal discretion.
Sure.
And stop.
And I think part of the problem, the teachers have so many kids in school, you know, and they have pranksters in the classrooms and things. I substitute teach in Fairfax County. And some days I come home and it's like, wow, why did I go out there today? You know, because I've had one of those days. So I can imagine some of the teachers having those type of days for an entire week.
Right.
And the only thing she wants to do is like, take him out, put him out, you know, but we have to be more patient. And of course, we go back to the not having enough money for the schools because our classrooms are overcrowded. You know, so how do you teach when you have a couple of disruptive kids and the only solution is to put them out?
Right. And you've got all the rest of the kids that you've got to educate, and so it's very hard.
But we have to look at it. We have the alternative schools that they send you to. So exactly what are they accomplishing in the alternative schools?
One of the other things that Fairfax County, and I believe Fairfax County is doing, but Alexandria is doing a pilot program, the restorative justice.
Right.
And so Fairfax County, I believe our Alexandria City came over and got some training from you all, and so what they utilize is it's more of a peer sort of circle group, and everyone gets in a room. They sit down at the table at a table. There's a facilitator, and you get to have a conversation. You get to talk about, you know, what are some of the issues that impacted. What were some of the triggers that made you just to make the triggers that allowed you to make the decision that you made, what you could have done differently, and then come up with what your consequence should be. And so it's a collective between the teachers, between administrators, between other students, and the student that's involved. And so that restorative justice program, we're hoping it's going to expand more into the Alexandria City Public Schools, but I know that Fairfax County is also doing it as well.
And because I know Fairfax had the mediation, peer mediation.
Right.
And I think that's a good way to help try to resolve issues as
Well,
well.
certainly the restorative justice has a good reputation in the other school systems that have tried it. So that is a way of perhaps moving us away from sort of this rigid discipline where, as you say, the kids end out of school and they're not doing anything good out there. They're no longer learning, and they're not supervised. And
right, exactly.
And that does tend to lead to mischief.
And see, at one time, I mean, a child could get suspended for like 10 days. What do you do for 10 days?
Right.
Get in trouble.
Well, and you get far behind. So if you were having problems to begin with, if that was one of the reasons you were acting out, now you're even worse.
Right.
You know, you're even farther behind than you were when you left.
Right. I remember Superintendent Garza was speaking once, and she was speaking on the fact that kids get suspended for such a long time.
Yeah.
And she said, I never heard of anything like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and hopefully we will get that changed in Fairfax, because I'm highly skeptical that these long suspensions work. And then, of course, if you appeal it, you didn't get to go back during your appeal. And I think they were looking at changing that. I don't know if they did.
But that is something that definitely needs to be changed, and the NAACP will be looking into it and following up on it.
Good. Good. Well, let me ask, I saw this in the paper this morning. There was an opinion piece in the Washington Post by Cortland Malloy talking about the district establishing an all-black boys' school. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. It's just that I hadn't heard that there were these proposals out there. What do you think? Is the NAACP taken any positions on these kinds of things? What do you personally think? Is this where we really want to go?
Well,
the NAACP has not taken a position on it. What I do know is that this is an idea that has been circulating for a while. One of the individuals that I know that has been taking an honest look and been doing some fundraising all across the country is Dr. Umar Johnson. He is a psychologist and used to work at a school in, I believe it was Philadelphia, and he has been trying to purchase St. Paul's College. To take St. Paul's College and turn it into a school specifically for African American boys and girls. It is his thought process that having the school specifically address issues of slavery, creating a level of identity where you can centrally focus on issues that are impacting the African American community. Having teachers who look like them, having other peer groups sort of primarily be in the classroom with those students is what his thought process is, and he believes that having that environment will create additional leaders, will create future opportunities for students, sort of like North Carolina A&T, focusing on agriculture, focusing on science, technology, engineering, math, providing all those kinds of programs. And so the article that you speak of is not sort of a new topic. It's definitely something that's been it's been controversial.
It sounds like old days where segregation is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And that's why I sort of looked at it and said, and there are the schools where you had like the colleges, the Seven Sisters, where only women went. And the women, you produce these great leaders, and they acted differently when the boys weren't around to distract them and all those good kinds of things. But this just strikes me as, boy, it just feels like we're going back 60, 70 years.
But think about it. So the schools in Fairfax County, they have the ISA schools, they have specific Muslim schools, and so parents get to choose sort of what their preference is in terms of where they want to send their students. And so, having the all-boys school or all African-American school, I don't necessarily see, I just see it as an alternative. It's a different choice.
Okay. You want to chime in, Shirley? You're just being quiet. Well, actually, we're going to move on to voter stuff.
I was thinking, we do have colleges that are strictly for women and some that are strictly for men.
Right.
But my thought process was that, it goes back to segregation, and I know I probably get in trouble for this one, but I sometimes ask, segregation was not bad. I think the only thing we wanted was to have the same facilities, the same chemistry lab as the white schools had. We didn't necessarily want to mingle. I mean, it worked out okay in some instances, in some instances
right.
it did not. But if we go back to having an all-black male school, there is a male mentoring that I see can come out of that.
Right.
And there built-in respect. We have a lot of families that don't have male role models in that family. So there could be something positive that could come out of that.
Right.
You know, so I wouldn't knock it down and say yes, no. I would say maybe.
Maybe. Okay. I'm sort of on that maybe side as well. There are some things that could be good. I got to think about it.
You just
some
have
more.
to look at all of it. But then, if we do an all-black male school, then we can't complain if they say we want to do an all-white male school.
Right. Which, as I recall from my youth, were typically called Christian academies.
That's exactly right.
That's what we had in the town where I grew up in the Northeast.
Right.
All the boys went to this one school. All the white boys went to this one Christian academy.
Right.
So they're out there. I want to talk. We're going to be going to a break in another couple of minutes. We've got one more segment to go to keep talking about this. But I want to talk about voting. This is what we call an off year. There are no federal people running. There are no statewide people running in Virginia, and so we see very low turnout.
Exactly.
We may get something around 30% turnout, in contrast to the 70-80% that we had in 2008 and 2012 for the presidentials. So I know that the NAACP is active in things like voter registration drives and get out the votes. What do your chapters do in this area on those topics?
Well, we have a political action committee that's being established. We didn't have one last year, but we do voter registration every year.
Okay.
You know, but I think it's not just registering people to vote, is getting them out to vote, getting them to understand who's running for the position and what the issues are that they're supporting. And are those issues the one that you're interested in?
Right.
And the NAACP, we say you vote for the person that support what you want. It doesn't make any difference which political party they're in. And people don't understand that your local laws, and maybe they do understand, your local laws are made in the local elections.
Right.
You know, so we get a call and say, hey, well, this happened, and one of my questions is, did you vote? No. Well, then you're part of the problem. You need to vote, and that's one of the things I would like to do now. Stress the fact these are the people that's going to make the law that you got to follow every day.
Exactly. Well, we're going to come back and talk some more about voting and voter suppression and some other good things. Stay with us.
There's more than just books at the library.
There's more than just books at the library.
Excuse me. There's more than just books at the library.
Il y a plus que de livres à la bibliothèque.
Hello. You have a lot of great books here today. You know there's more than just books at the library.
I know.
There's more than just books at the library.
I don't want to be hooked to a machine.
I want all the medical treatment available to me.
I wouldn't want my family to have to make this decision.
My doctor knows what's best for me.
An advance directive is your life on your terms. Talk with your family. Decide what's right for you. Then put it in writing.
Documenting my wishes today means my family won't have to make heart-wrenching decisions later.
To learn more, visit www.putitinwriting.org.
1,200 American youth run away from their homes every day. The National Runaway Switchboard is here to help. 1-800-RUNAWAY. If you are a runaway, thinking about running away from home, or a parent or guardian concerned about issues facing your child, call us 24 hours a day. 1-800-RUNAWAY. In times of crisis, hope is just a phone call away. 1-800.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back. I'm Bettina Lawton. I'm your host, and we are here with Shirley Ginwright. She is president of the NAACP in Fairfax and a queen mother of Cameroon. And LaDonna Sanders, she is the president of the NAACP in Alexandria. And when we left, we had just started talking about voting. And so I want to go back to that topic, talk about voter ID. There's a lot of conversation about that in Virginia and nationwide in the last couple of years about requiring photo IDs. And what do you think? We've got it now in Virginia, and I know there was some effort. Oh, I hope we're not going to, we can't lose the Queen Mother here, people. Are you okay? All right, can we get you some water?
Sorry about that.
That's all right. I know there was some talk in the General Assembly about strengthening the voter ID laws and actually requiring it for absentee voting, which I thought was kind of interesting because the notion of voter ID was there'd be somebody standing in front of you and you look at the ID and you look at them. When you're doing a mail-in absentee, there's nobody standing in front of you. I don't know what happened with that. It seemed like it was going. So, LaDonna, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what happened to it either. I'll definitely make sure that I take a look. I do know that to combat voter ID, our voter registrar, the office created IDs so that anyone without an ID could come to the voter registrar's office and get a free ID to utilize for the purpose of voting. Those IDs across the country, it sort of started out really slow, but the numbers escalated as time went on and as information got out. They did a large effort in terms of sending out postcards and doing PSA announcements on public service TV to make sure that the community and public were aware of what those changes were going to be. The NAACP at our community forums that we had for individuals who were running for office, we also passed out information and teamed up with the Alexandria Democratic Committee, the Republican Committee. We had all of their tables represented at most of our events so that they could also reach out and touch the community as well. This upcoming election cycle, you're right, numbers are typically really low, and what we're going to be working to do is to again hold those same kind of forums out in the community, making sure that people are aware of who the candidates are, giving them the opportunity to come and share what their concerns are, meet the candidates, and understand the process. I think part of it is how much interaction there is with the candidates and with other organizations, so that people can get the questions that they have answered about the candidates. And that's going to be, a major strategy, I think, to get people out. The NAACP last cycle did not offer rides, but there were other organizations like the Urban League, the churches, and those were definitely beneficial to some of the elderly, some of our less mobile, less ambulatory residents in the city of Alexandria.
Yeah, I think the photo ID issue in Fairfax becomes difficult because the size of the county is so big that if you have to go to the registrar's office, you can, from Mount Vernon someplace, right. That's a schlep, and it may not be particularly accessible with public transportation, and that becomes another issue.
I'm not sure if Fairfax County did, but I know Alexandria had like a mobile.
They had a limited number of them that went to, I think, libraries.
Right, they did.
They had mobile units that went around as well.
And it was my understanding that, of course I have ID, that if you went to vote and did not have an ID, you could get a provisional vote,
Right.
and then you would come back.
Right, you had 3 days to come back.
Right, exactly.
And do something
so that
about
worked. But we've worked with the League of Women Voters a lot, and we'll work with them again, partner with them again this year.
Well,
and
there are so many candidates this year that it's going to be, I know the
Right.
League of Women Voters a couple of years ago did, in Fairfax County, they did all of these community forums, and I went
Right.
to a number of them, and you would have like 15 people. And this
Yeah, and
year,
that's something.
there are like, multiples of that in any given jurisdiction, a magisterial district running, so I'm not
Right.
quite sure how they're going to
And see, we didn't have, in Fairfax, we didn't do forums, but instead we partnered with other organizations, so we wouldn't have that small number of people. So there were a lot of forums going on.
There were. There's a lot.
So
there's a lot.
the thing was, if you limit maybe the number, then you can get more people in one area to do that.
That is true. What do you think people need to be doing? I mean, we used to do a lot of early voting, and I heard that that's going to be more restricted this year. Not even so much because of any kind of legislation, but because of budget concerns. Opening up satellite locations on the weekends or evenings prior to the actual date in November costs money, and that it's going to be more restricted this year. So what can we do to actually get more people out to vote? I always like to say to folks, this is your first opportunity to vote. Your last opportunity is November 3rd, but you have all these other opportunities so that you don't end up with, for example, we had that special election in Fairfax on January 6th. We had a blizzard, and people, they laughed because it was in the Drainsville area in Great Falls and long driveways and people who couldn't get out because they couldn't get out of their own driveway. But how do we encourage people to vote in a year where maybe they don't realize that the local laws that affect you every year.
And that's
These
what we
are
have,
the people.
That's what we're going to have to do, is to educate, what the candidates stand for and what our issues are, and making sure that if they attend a forum, they ask the candidates these questions.
Okay.
And then hold them accountable. Look at their record. What did they vote for in the past?
Right.
How did they support you in the past? If they didn't, then vote against them.
Right.
If you don't like what they're doing and you don't vote, because I tell them, your vote is your power, and this is your voice.
Right.
So if you don't like what's going on, go vote.
Go vote. Exactly right. Exactly right.
And I think what most cities and localities have been doing has actually been working. I think, people make a personal choice about whether or not they're going to make the time to go out and vote. But those measures that have been happening in terms of marketing all throughout the libraries, marketing through the recreation centers, having the candidates visit the local churches, having the candidates go out into the community, I think those are the avenues that have been working, and I don't see that there's any reason to stop doing those things. It all boils down to whether or not a candidate has said something or done something that has actually touched you, or that you can really relate to, that will impact your life. Definitely having the polling stations run smoothly. I served as an election officer, and not having the long lines. Not having the long lines. Having on the date, it be clear about how people can get in. Having parking. There's nothing worse than having to drive around and around and around because you can't find a place to park. So when localities are planning election sites, just take those kinds of things into consideration.
Well, I truly, the people who act as election officers, those are amazingly long days. I do a lot of election protection inside, and I don't have to be there at 4 in the morning. But it's still a long day, and it's way more than I would want to have to do. I do want to talk about, in terms of, you've got elections coming up, and we've also got some issues with law enforcement, and I know one of the issues that have come up in Virginia and in a lot of other states is the privatization of prisons. And what is that actually doing? There have been some talk about closing prisons to save money, and the other side of that is saying, well, let's have some private corporation run them. Somehow they think they can do them more efficiently or cheaper or whatever, despite the profit motive. I understand that there are some quote-unquote non-profit prison corporations out there as well. But how does that actually work? And there's a distinction between prisons and jails. Prisons is the longer time frame, the more than a year, more serious crimes are sitting in the prisons.
Correct.
And that's what we're talking about, are the actual prisons, not the local jails.
Correct. Right.
So what is going on in Virginia on privatizing prisons? Are we actually going down that road here?
I'm not sure about Virginia, but I know, excuse me, there are a lot of prisons that have been prioritized. And I do know that it's a business. So in order for you to make money, you have to have all of your beds filled. And that's why you have the revolving door. You know, so if you have someone going into the prison system, where years ago it was for rehabilitation, and they would teach them a skill. So when they come out, they can take care of themselves and their families. So now they go in, they play cards, and they draw, whatever it is they do, but they come out with nothing except a record, because they know they're coming back. And my bed is filled, because I'm running a business now.
Wow. That's kind of scary.
It is.
You had a statement that you made, Shirley, in December that you were going to be working diligently to make sure that nothing like Ferguson happened in Fairfax County. And in your statement, and in some articles I read, you said you were going to be meeting with county leaders to talk about that. And I wanted to ask you, who'd you meet with? And what happened? Because I saw one article about it and then I didn't see anything. What happened?
Well, the first person I met with was Chief Rossler, the Fairfax County Police Chief, and I called him and asked him if we could meet to see what it was that we needed to do to ensure nothing like Ferguson happened here in Fairfax County. And we had that discussion. And he recommended that we talk to Chairman Bolivar, and that it should involve all of our first responders, the sheriff as well as the fire department. We had that meeting with Chairman Bolivar in December. It included other civic leaders from NAACP, which is the National Asian and Pacific Islander Korean group, as well as with the LULAC. And we established the Communities of Trust Committee, which I chair.
And that's what we started talking about, and we're hearing our music, which means I'm going to have you back so that we can talk some more about that, because I think that's important, and I wondered what that was. So I'm glad something came of it, because as I said, I hadn't heard. I want to thank you for coming, and we'll have you back.
Thank you very much.